Welcome to Let's Talk About It. I'm excited to hang out with you this month. We've got something that's really going to help you to live the dream that you have in your heart. Thank you to all of our partners and other people who have given to help us to continue to help people in this way. Your giving is making a difference. We hardly go a day without hearing about how what we're doing on Let's Talk About It or how what we're doing on social media is changing somebody's life. So we are really thankful for you. But we're also excited because we know that although we've already reached so many people, we're going to get to 1 million people quickly. And we're going to really help God save the world. Today I have with me a guest that I have known for, I'm guessing, 30 plus years. I remember being 13 years old. And I think he was working at my dad's church. And so during his lunch break, we would be in the gym shooting around. And ever since then, I've seen him do so many things, God do so many things through his life. And so welcome, Hajj, to Let's Talk About It.
Well, I'm super excited, and I appreciate the opportunity today, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, of course, you've been doing a lot. I mean, every time I look up, I see you on CNN or something. But you have quite a story. You mind telling us your story?
Yeah. So I grew up in Roseville, Michigan, metropolitan Detroit. I'm a product of a single parent. So my mother got me into the church early. That's when I think I was a sophomore in high school. It was like about 85, right? So kind of started there, but you know what I'm saying, went to, ultimately, like, I wanted to design sneakers growing up. And so I graduated from high school in 89. This is pre-internet. I literally wrote every single sneaker company in the continental United States, trying to get an internship, because this was before you had websites and internship programs, trying to get started because I had a love for design. I ultimately ended up starting working for a company called Movade Footwear, working under a guy by the name of Dwayne Edwards. And so he runs something called Pencil Lewis Academy, which is a sneaker academy downtown. They have a manufacturing facility. And so I kind of got my start doing that. I went to engineering school, and then I started working in automotive industry. And on day one, I realized that I didn't love this stuff. I went to school for engineering, put all this time in, and I was like, I absolutely do not want to do this for the rest of my life. And I knew that on day one. So what do you do when you've gone to engineering school, and especially being black, when you are, I guess, quote unquote, smart, or you have a certain degree, there's an expectation from your family to go do that work. Right. But I knew I didn't want to do that my whole life. And so I started as an entrepreneur, and I was really moonlighting with that. And then in 2009, I just came back from speaking at Walt Disney. My wife was pregnant with our daughter. And it was my birthday. It was December 23rd, and Ford Motor Company said that was my last day. So I literally walk out of Ford Motor Company on my birthday, 2009, and my iPhone rings. And my iPhone rings with my first opportunity. And everybody talks about being an entrepreneur until they become one.
Right.
And when they become an entrepreneur, they realize, man, this stuff is really hard. But I get a call from Michigan Tech. They want to hire me as a consultant. So I get my first big opportunity. I'm making more than what I was making at Ford. But now I'm doing this, and I have billable hours with them. And so that kind of got me started on my journey. And I haven't looked back. And so from that day forward, I've just been doing the work that I'm doing. So I run something today called Rebrand X. So we're focused on the future of intelligence. And it really is about how do we architect human potential. And so it's the intersection between innovation, technology, and culture. And so I'm super excited about that. And I run something called Modern Athlete. So it's a high street luxury apparel brand, and so we love the work that we're doing. So in this moment, I think about all the stuff that's come out with AI. And so when I think about the future, what we want to do is really prepare people for what's next. And so when you think about that, I believe that technology is an extension of human ability. And so how do you prepare people for a future that there's no blueprint for? How do you prepare people for a future where we don't even know what jobs are going to look like? Are people going to even have jobs? And what does that look like? And so really, this is a really interesting time, especially with the new administration that's in place and all the things that are going on. I think there's so much uncertainty.
Right.
And so what I've really focused on is really trying to double down to really understand what is the assignment for this season.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
You know what I'm saying? So that's really what I've been focused on, because like, even when you think about assignments, so even, you know what I'm saying? So if I think about purpose and think about assignments, even though we have a purpose, we have a series of assignments.
Right. Yep.
So when Kobe got finished playing basketball, was his purpose over?
Right. Right.
No, I mean, like, that was an assignment.
Right.
And he had to figure out that next phase.
And he did.
Yeah, and he had, and I was more excited about the next phase than what he did in the previous one. But how many of us really grapple with and try to really focus on trying to totally understand and immerse ourselves in whatever that next phase is?
I remember having a conversation, and this was a long time ago now, but it was a guy at a church I was pastoring in Atlanta, and he was a professional athlete. And basically, a couple of bad things happened to him. But I remember sitting down with him and him saying to me, he had no idea how hard he had to work. And I ended up talking to another professional athlete that was in our church later, and he said the same thing to me. I told him what he said. He said, yeah, that's true. I had no idea. So these guys were gifted. In high school, they didn't really have to do much. In college, you know, one of them, he just dominated. But the minute he stepped into like the league, it was like, man, this is hard. And I think sometimes when we think about, we got these dreams in our hearts, man. We see where we're going, man. We see what our assignment is. And then we actually we got to put the work in. Man, it's hard, right? You're not going to slide by here. You're not going to be lazy and live that dream. You're just going to be a dreamer, right? Unless you actually put the work in. And so I noticed you mentioned that it's something that you've had to push through.
Yeah, you know, it's like every day you have to be willing to get up and to kill your prey. And so, you know, lots of times as believers, we almost live in this fallacy where we just think that things are just going to just automatically fall into place just because we love God and, you know, when we're saved and all of these things, when like you still have to do the work, and you still have to understand the craft and really hone your skills. And I think anybody who's excellent at anything has put in what Malcolm Gladwell talks about, the 10,000 hours, right? And so it's really cutting your teeth and understanding where the opportunities are. What does the business model look like? How does the idea make money? And so, you know, lots of times, like we're looking at things from a hobby standpoint, or the other part is that we get into this thing of comparison. And comparison to me is a dream killer. And the reason why it's a dream killer is because we start looking at somebody else's life, wanting what we think they have, not understanding all the stuff that goes into it. I heard T.D. Jakes said, if I wanted to destroy you, I would just give you my life, right? Because you don't understand all the things that are required. You know, where drones are riding by, looking and scrutinizing every single thing that you do, making up stories, things that are happening within your family, you know, and all of the things that you have to, you know, and so all of these things that lots of times we look at stuff on social media. Social media can be a dream killer because we start looking at all of these things, and it's like, if I can just be, that's why when horses run, they have the things that are covering their eyes. Because they need to be able to be so focused and not distracted by what's happening on the left and on the right. And I think lots of times we get distracted because we're looking at what other people have. And if we just focused on what we're supposed to do,
Right.
I just think we would be so much better. But it's hard because it's on TikTok, it's on Instagram, and it's in Snap and all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you not look at that and just stay focused on the main thing?
And it's even harder when you're not doing as well as you'd like to do.
Yes.
Like in that moment where things suddenly aren't working as well as you hope they would work. You're behind schedule, at least as far as you're concerned.
Yeah.
And then you see somebody else that is doing great. And you know, it just makes it like, man, what's wrong with me? And and maybe you start getting off course. And I agree with you. I think that's a real challenge, is just allowing ourselves to lose focus and maybe try to take some shortcuts. There's a scripture in the Bible in Proverbs 28:20 that talks about a faithful man will abound with blessings. But the one that's in a hurry to be rich, he's not going to be innocent. It's going to destroy him. And if you're going to be successful in any area, following any dream, you've got to keep doing what you said. You got to get up and kill your prey every day. You got to do it every day. You got to do it no matter how you feel. You got to do it whether or not it seems like it's working. You got to do it if you seem like you're behind somebody else, they're going faster, but you have to keep being diligent, right? And you can't get off course and all of a sudden try to do something a little different because, well, maybe this will get me here quicker. Or this is what worked for so-and-so, right? You got to keep on pushing. And I think Proverbs 10:4 says, the hand of the diligent maketh rich. And that can be hard to do when things aren't going the way you want them to go. I know you've had some moments where you've had some setbacks as you've chased after some of the dreams in your heart. How did you handle those?
It was a challenge because there's times where I'm looking at people that I started out with, and I was like, even though I had achieved a certain level of success or notoriety, whatever you want to call it, I still was like, there's another gear out there. There's a whole nother level, and I still felt like, and part of that can be good from the standpoint of not being complacent, but also too, like, what I'm saying? So I've never been coveted of anybody else's stuff. Like, I'm happy when I see other people succeed. And so I think we have to have that joy in our heart to be able to be excited when we see our brothers and sisters win.
Rejoice with those that rejoice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Because we want them to do the same. Now, whether they do it or not, that's something else, right? But but I've always tried to maintain that, and I have found that God has He's always had me do stuff early, right? So even when I got into branding, this was like 2001. Like I'm reading and understanding about personal branding. Nobody's talking about personal branding in 2001 except Tom Peters. So I wrote a book in 2005, but nobody was doing that. Even when I did a personal brand conference in 2008, like I think we had like the largest one in the Midwest. Nobody was really doing that, back then. Or doing city stuff. And we started doing rebrand Detroit and turned into rebrand cities. Right. There wasn't a lot of people doing that or creating educational platforms like Brand Camp University. And so what I found is that God is always helping me to be able to see around the corner. Or even AI stuff we started doing. So we're doing this this was before ChatGPT launched, and then it launches, within the next 30 days, right? And so all of these things, I've always found that He's always had me there early. Even if we go back to the G5G days, what people don't understand, that was Fear of God 30 years ago. Fear of God is one of the most groundbreaking, culturally connected. I mean, like, that stuff is we were doing that 30 years ago. When, like Christian apparel was whack to me. You know what I'm saying?
I remember.
So, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, Lord, okay, all right. So you had me early doing this stuff. So now I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that I totally knock it out of the park. Right. Because I feel like there was some success, but I feel like there's a whole nother level out there, and I'm like, I don't want to leave any meat on the bone, right? Because again, we've done some okay stuff, but I still feel like there's a whole nother level out there, and that's what really wakes me up in the morning. Now it's like, okay, I don't wanna leave anything. I want to go to the grave empty. I want to make sure I'm setting my daughter up for success.
Right.
So what can I teach her that I didn't learn? Because school really is not designed for people to be successful from the standpoint of it's designed for you to be an employee. That's the structure.
Yeah.
The Carnegie, and if you study it out, and Rockefeller, they were literally creating, the system is designed to create employees, and the whole structure of the bell ringing, sitting in seats, and the order, and all following instruction, all of those things. Not saying there's not value in it,
Right.
but how do we augment that for our kids and
Right.
even for ourselves, so that we don't get complacent in that, in really preparing for what's next?
Yeah, and you really want to raise, you want your kids to be deployed instead of employed.
Yes.
I've had that conversation with my daughters as well, and I think one of the things that has helped me, and I believe it's helped you as well, is recognizing that we don't have to do all this alone. That there is a place for mentors and models, and obviously mentors being people we know, but also, those books you're reading, right? You may not know those guys, but they are in a sense your mentor, right? And the same thing in seeing other people do what you're trying to do in the space you're trying to do it. Have you found that God's used anybody in that way for you, or that that's been helpful to you?
Yeah. So I have virtual mentors who have no idea that they're helping me. I have people who are in my life, even people that like Dr. and Minister Egan.
Right.
Like
Same
they've
for me.
been very instrumental. And even during Christmas, we were over their house, and so Dr. Egan asked me a question. He said, "What did God call you to do? Like, what did God specifically tell you?" And so I'm going through, and I'm sharing things, and I know what he was asking me, but I was like, I've never told anybody that the Lord spoke to me in an audible voice and said this or that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through this process. And he said, "That's not what I'm asking you." I said, "Dr. Egan, I know what you're asking me." And so I started walking through my life and all of the things that I had did, and I honestly felt like the work I had been doing was what God had called me to do. But when I left that conversation, it made me think. I said, you know what? I'm gonna take this time, and I'm gonna really spend time with God, so I can really understand what is the thing that I'm called to do in this season, right? And so they've always challenged me, and even when I was going through my health journey, right? I didn't share with a lot of people, but I had a tumor in 2019, got it removed, and it was cancerous, and so I had 4 lymph nodes that were above 20 millimeters in size, and so I had a choice. They were telling me to go do chemo. And if you don't do chemo, you might not live, and all of these things. I said, you know what? I'm not going that route. And so they've been there. Just got my last scan in, I think, November of last year. I'm cancer free, and so faith played a huge role in that. But having people like that who would call me, and and every now and then, like, you have your human moments, and I went plant-based and did all of these things, and I was like, I'm having pizza, and so and so Dr. Egan was like, when I said he was going off on me, he was like, what are you doing? Do you want to live?
Yeah.
Really challenging and pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
And so we don't always have people that are that invested in our future.
Yeah.
But I have them, and he was my Sunday school teacher, but you know what I'm saying? But he treats me like a little brother, but he doesn't give me when I say no leeway, he is invested and will say whatever, and so what I'm saying? So I do have people like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's extremely important.
Oh,
I can't
absolutely.
It's hard to express how how held back people are sometimes because they won't allow somebody to have that space in their life. Like, when you're grown, you're like, I'm grown. I don't got to listen to nobody.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, and then there's an ego side when you're doing something new. I want to be able to say, I did this by myself. Nobody taught me. Nobody showed me. And that's not how this is supposed to work, right? I mean, there's a scripture, was Ecclesiastes 4, 2 are better than one. It doesn't mean you're not good by yourself, but doing it with somebody else is better,
Yeah.
right? And so, and of course, they've helped me as well, the Egan's, and so I know what you're talking about. You need somebody in your life that can literally go off on you.
Yeah.
Lovingly,
Yeah.
but still be like, what's up? What are you doing? Why aren't you on it? Why isn't this happening? That'll speak the truth to you. Doesn't mean they're always right, but they force you to do what you did, right? Go and pray, talk to God myself, and God can kind of get my attention. I've watched people just, we've now been around a little bit. We used to be the young bucks. We're still young.
Yep.
But now I've watched people make major life mistakes because there's nobody in their life that can actually tell them the truth, that they'll listen to.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that. You have to humble yourself to some people in your life, and ideally in your area, that can actually speak to you and give you the knowledge you don't have on your own.
Yep. And then people who are willing to, because I don't think people should teach above what they're willing to live. And so when I look at them, they are two of the most disciplined people I've ever met in my entire life. And so they live it out biblically, they live it out business-wise, they treat, all of those things. So I can look at what they're doing and I can see consistency and I can see them applying biblical principles. Because we'll see people who succeed, we'll see the LeBron James, all the secular people, and not to say that they don't have a relationship with God, but I don't know them like that. Right. I know that they have a relationship with God, and I can see that God is using them in the marketplace, right? And so, what I'm saying, for me growing up at the church, I was like, I know God didn't call me to the ministry, but he called me. So understanding that marketplace ministry was a thing, and that we could be dope and excellent at that.
Yep.
That was encouraging for me, because I was like, where are the business people at? Because that's where I want to hang out. That's the part that I want to play. And I think this intersection between faith and culture, it's a challenge, right? Because most people will get to a place where they want to be connected from a culture standpoint, and they'll do whatever it takes to stay there, meaning that they'll compromise their own walk because they want to be with the celebrities and entertainers and all of these things. And so I think that's the part where it's a challenge, where God needs us there. Right. But do we have the integrity and the character to even be in those rooms?
Right. Yeah, I think, there's, I think it's Bill Winston talks about priests and kings, right? And so, we got priest and king, right? One reason why God has you connected to a church, one reason why God has you connected to spiritual leadership is to kind of help you stay in that space, right? When you're out there, because it's challenging. You're out there in culture, whether it's in the business world, whether it's the sports world, whether it's entertainment, you're exposed to all kinds of things. And so you definitely need the grounding of your spiritual church, your church, your spiritual leadership, and having someone that can speak into your life in that way as well to keep it together. But the other side of that, and I think this is what you were talking about, is part of my job is to release people into their kingship, into marketplace ministry. I told our folk around here, my greatness is in your greatness. When you do what God called you to do, that's what makes me great. I helped you get to that point. That's my job. In fact, this was something that even Catherine Egan mentioned to me. It's like, you're an equipper. That's my job, is to just kind of set folk up, give them what they need, from a spiritual standpoint, and obviously sometimes it's a natural standpoint, and then say, go, and be a support. And so we're kind of talking about these things, and we're just talking today. But I think that part of what we're really getting after is the things you need around you so that you really can live your dream. And it's not just, I got something in my heart. It's not just, I prayed and I heard from God. It's going to be, I've got to have some people around me that's going to help me. It's got to be, I'm going to do the work to get knowledge, whether it's reading books, going to workshop, watching podcasts, etc. It's going to be that when things get tough, I'm not going to wilt. I'm not going to get off course. I'm going to stay the course and get up. And as you said, go ahead and kill your prey that day. I mean, these are all things that help you to get to a place where you're at, where you've done. I kind of lost count after a while. I just look up and you're doing something else cool, and I'm like, it's gonna work, because I've seen it work, But I remember when you were first doing some things, and you learned some things, and something kind of did work and kind of didn't work, and I could tell you was happy sometimes, disappointed other times, but here you are. And so part of the reason I wanted to have you on here is because sometimes people don't know how to get here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of it is that, we have a trademark on being authentically who we are. And I think sometimes we want to go be somebody else versus just being who God created and wired you to be, And so there's people that you can reach that I can't reach. And there's people that, like, just, what I'm saying, there's people that I look at that I'm like, man, he's cooler than I am. But then somebody might think I'm cool, right? And so, like, I'll share with my daughter, and so there's times that she doesn't think I'm cool. And I'm like, girl, like, when I get off the plane, I go other places, like, they get excited to see me. And she's like, oh, whatever. It's the Jesus syndrome, right?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So she doesn't think that I'm extra cool, which is
well, my daughters
totally
don't think
fine.
I'm cool either.
No, I'm like, whatever, And so, but so what I've been trying to focus on, how do I become uniquely me? And like when I looked at the Pharrell movie, I don't know if you saw, like, the piece by piece, like, the movie.
I just saw like a preview or something. Yeah,
but it was just so interesting just to see the way his brain works, right? And so he's a creative person who wanted to embody his story without him feeling like he had to hear himself say his story over and over again. And he brought in Legos. And Legos end up adding, 16 different color hues because of that movie. But the way he told that story to me was so super creative. And I got inspired just seeing how he was able to use something that I grew up playing with Legos as a kid. And he now viewed that to be a storyteller. We have to become better storytellers, you know what I'm saying, so that people can connect to the stuff that we're doing. Because there are people that are inspired, that need to see us win, that need to see us go through our valleys and our journey.
Yeah.
As much as a Lions fan as I am, when I watch the Eagles win, Jalen Hurts' story, to me, like, I followed him in college.
Yeah.
He was 26-2.
Yeah. And benched.
And got benched in the championship game at halftime.
Yep.
But that made him who he was. If he doesn't get benched, he's not the Super Bowl champ.
Right.
And he talks about how that part was important for the journey. But we just want all the good stuff without the bad stuff. Like, you're 26-2, then he stays because he wants to get his degree from Alabama. Everybody else would have transferred. He would have been starting anywhere else in the country day one.
Yep.
He sits the bench the whole year. Then they need him in the SEC championship. He wins the game. He then goes over to Oklahoma, and it made him a better. But that whole year, he's learning how to become a pocket passer.
Right.
Then he goes plays for Lincoln Riley, and so all of that stuff was important.
Right.
He needed those failures. He needed that rough patch to become who he was. And so sometimes we don't want to go through it because there's times that we don't, you know what I'm saying? We're like, do I have to go through this? We don't realize that we need that to be able to complete the journey.
Right. Yeah. I mean, God is a God who can even take what Satan meant for evil and turn into good, right? But you do have to hang in there. And so I think that I love his story too. And Saquon's as well.
Yeah.
But I love his story too because he really... there's a tenacity there that just says, you know what, I'm not going to give up here. I'm not going to be moved by what I'm seeing or what's happening. He clearly had a dream to get to where he is, you know, and I don't know, that's just something that's big in my heart. I keep talking about it, but we both been in situations where you're starting something new, and you know, you kind of start with this dream of it's gonna be, and then it's not at first, you know, and you go through stuff and you're like, man, and okay, what you gonna do? It's kind of easy to just kind of go back and be like, well, you know. And it's a whole nother animal when you get benched in 26-2, right? It's a whole nother animal. And so that's something that you've got to learn to fight through. You've got to let God help you fight through. And it's just toughness. So anybody that wants to connect with you, how would they do that? On social media, otherwise? Obviously you got Modern Athlete going on as well.
Yeah, so I would just say just follow me online. I'm in IG and I'm Hajj Flemings, HajjFlemings. We got Modern Athlete, which is the Mod Athlete. Those are probably the best ways. I'm also in LinkedIn, and so I'm there, you know, and you know, just doing the work that I'm doing, and you know, just trying to stay the course.
Yeah, you're doing big things. You're doing big things. So we appreciate you hanging out with us, and appreciate all you who watched this with us today. And once again, all of our partners. Also, we've got something pretty cool that we just launched, the FaithX Network, our own streaming network. Better experiences here. You want to be able to enjoy entertainment without all the mess. We're presenting that now, so go to faithxnetwork.com. And if you want to partner with us, go to andrebutler.com, and you can do that, and we'll be making sure we're praying for you and we're taking care of you in every way that you really need, that we believe that God wants us to. So thanks again for hanging out with us. We will see you next month, and know that God has a future for you.